How on earth did they win it?
Yeah, well, I mean, City did make changes, but it's still an extremely strong side. But look, there's no doubt with his team selection, he is concerned about the second leg in Dortmund. I mean, we know Dortmund haven't had the greatest of season, but they can still be a threat, particularly if you make mistakes. And so with that in mind, he made changes. But when Cooper got sent off, and I don't know what Stevie thinks, but I thought it was a red for sure, and I think David Cook was right to tell Andre Mara to go and look at it because it was dangerous. But once they go down to 10 men, as you say, then that's it, because Leeds had been struggling anyway, even with 11 men. So you thought, right, that's it. City will go on, get 3 or 4, get the job done, get this Premier League title wrapped up sooner rather than later, and then move on. But because he made those changes, because Mahrez wasn't playing, Aguero wasn't there, De Bruyne, there was others, Rodri wasn't at the team. There was a whole host of them, Phil Foden, who did come on. Then they weren't able to get the job done. And then, there was some gaps at the end, and Dallas goes through and finishes brilliantly. So, yeah, I mean, it is a concern in terms of how quickly they're going to get this Premier League title wrapped up. But it's clear that he is concerned and does not think that the Dortmund second leg is a foregone conclusion, which, of course, it is not.
City are going to win the league, Stevie. We know this, but obviously we've talked a lot about the possibility of them completing a quadruple. Are we seeing signs in a drop of quality that could affect that?
I don't think so. As Craig said, they made so many changes because of the upcoming Dortmund game. And the most important one that wasn't there was Ruben Diaz. We haven't seen a City side dominate completely, struggle to score and then lose a goal near the end on the counter-attack since this guy appeared. So the fact that he will now return should shore all that up. And then you'd have to think after that, the amount of chances that the City do create, then they will go on and win games. Listen, right now, regardless of the opposition, when City step on the field, I think they're favourites to win any game. And so if you go by that, that kind of means I fancy that they could actually do this quadruple,
Meanwhile, Liverpool registering their first Premier League at Anfield for a very long time, coming from behind to beat Aston Villa by 2-1. What a week for Trent Alexander-Arnold, Stevie.
Oh my goodness, I'll tell you what, I don't know about him, but I had to lie down after this game. This was torture.
You watched it in bed? What are you talking about?
Trent, to answer your question, yeah, Trent Alexander with the winner. I mean, he's basically had the greatest and worst week of his life. Complete and utter disaster midweek in the Champions League, and then he's the match winner today. I think we can say his form's a little bit up and down, but no, fantastic finish and shows a lot of guts. He's been getting a lot of stick, not just from us, but from any other channel or pundit or analysts. Everybody's been getting on his back, and even Gareth Southgate dropping him from the England squad tells you that he's been struggling. So today was a great day for him, that's for sure. Not so great for Liverpool. Yes, they did win, but this was torture. Just, a domination again. Way better than the opposition, but never looked like scoring. Really didn't. Salah did his usual, scored a goal from nowhere. But Firmino and Mane that came on didn't look as though they were going to score. Even Jota didn't look as though he was going to score. So
goodness, get doom and gloom.
Yeah, I know, but it was I needed to lie down after it. I was absolutely shattered.
Right. But Craig, these were games that they weren't winning in the past, so they've got to take the 3 points here, obviously.
Yeah, and I think you saw that with Klopp's reaction when the Alexander-Arnold goal went in, because it has been desperate at times by their standards, and for long periods they've dominated and haven't looked like scoring, and they've always looked vulnerable at the other end. We saw that with the Watkins goal when McGinn reverses it to him and he finishes well, and they're like, here we go again. But Andy Robertson did brilliantly down the left, and there was Mo Salah to get a tap in, and then Alexander-Arnold with a great finish. But look, it's okay playing well against Aston Villa and Arsenal, which is the games that have been in between the Real Madrid games, but they don't ask the same questions that Real Madrid have asked and are going to ask again at Anfield. So if he thinks he's had a better game, which he did, then he's going to have a rethink about his positioning and his decision-making come this Champions League game, because they're going to target him again, Alexander-Arnold, for sure. They know that back line's weak. They know the full-backs like to go forward, but they know he's been caught out, and Real Madrid will target him, but it's not going to do his confidence, Dan, any harm whatsoever, because his performances have been dissected. But listen, when people are dissecting your performances like they have been with Alexander-Arnold, it tells you just what they think of you. He's catapulted himself in the last couple of years into the standing that everybody just expects him to play 9 out of 10 every week, and it just doesn't happen.
That win for Liverpool would put them temporarily into fourth. However, Chelsea with the win against Crystal Palace put them back into a Champions League spot. Craig, this game was pretty much done in opening 10 minutes.
Yeah, look, it's difficult. I think you've got to say Chelsea were extremely professional and played well. And the interesting thing is that I'm not quite sure how he sees, or I'm not quite sure Tuchel's worked out just what that front three is going to be, and particularly that central position. We saw Havertz there today, and that effectively could be his best position, because he played it quite often at Leverkusen, and he actually looked comfortable today. But let's be frank about this. Crystal Palace, apart from a 10-minute period after half-time when he brought on McCarthy and Sloop, and Benteke scored that great header, were absolutely abysmal. I mean, how can you be at home at Selhurst Park and sit off and allow Chelsea to play that ball around as if it was a training game? So, from Chelsea's perspective, thankfully from their perspective, it was a walk in the park. Nothing to worry about in terms of the game coming up against Porto, because they had never got a finger laid on them. Great 3 points. Mount was fantastic again. All these things are positive off the back of the West Brom debacle. But Crystal Palace, geez, oh geez. I mean, how bad were they?
We saw Christian Pulisic getting a couple of goals as well. Kai Havertz, arguably his best performance in a Chelsea shirt as well, Stevie.
Yeah, I mean, I quite liked the way they were set up. You know, Havertz to me is a guy who knits things together. And when you've got two guys on the outside, one being Mount on one side and Pulisic on the other, who actually want to get in and run in behind and get in the box and get on the end of things, I thought it worked great. Now, yes, Crystal Palace were pretty horrible. But you know what? You can only play what's put in front of you. And they completely dissected them. The only criticism you would have is that they didn't score more. I mean, even Pulisic had another chance that he probably could have scored. So that would have been a great hat-trick for him to come back. But Havertz and Pulisic were... well, they could only be as good as the opposition let them, and the opposition let them. So they turned up and they produced.
Dan, I'm with Stevie here. I think it looks a good combination, a good threesome, and I think, you know, barring a disaster, they're going to be going into the semi-finals, I believe it is, if they beat Porto. Yeah. They were at the quarter-final stage. I'm getting mixed up. So barring a disaster, and listen, it's not impossible for Porto. If West Brom can go to Stamford Bridge and beat Chelsea like they did, then Porto can. So you're not looking too far ahead. But if they do get to the semi-finals, and there is some big games coming up for the Champions League spot in the Premier League, and with Liverpool's win, there's no doubt that's happening. I don't think Timo Werner gets in the team. I mean, as Stevie said, I'd much rather have a fit Christian Pulisic and I'm clearly on form and, you know, fantastic season again, Mason Mount behind Havertz, because Havertz is a clever player. We're just not quite seen it every week. But he's played wide, he's played central, deeper. He's played, you know, where Christian Pulisic and Mount has played, and it's not quite worked for him so far, and so maybe that's good food for thought for Thomas Tuchel, and not so much for Timo Werner, who I think if there was a really big game for Chelsea tomorrow, might find himself stuck on the bench, and I think that tells you everything you need to know about his form. But Pulisic looked sharp. We know about Mount, and as Stevie said, Havertz, albeit against Palace, looked a lot more comfortable in that position than he has done in the others that he's played for Chelsea this season.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.